Righto, so today's video is only going to be a quick instruction video on how to mount the badges. G'day and welcome back to the 40 channel. It has got freezing cold outside. I was very lucky to get my epoxy primer down before it got cold and wet, so now it's just sitting there. So the paint is on a bit hold. But what I realised was that when I bought my FJ40, it didn't have the rear badges. So the holes were all plugged up. When I cut all the rust out, put on the new HOMS panels, I just come to the realisation that I hadn't marked out my holes for where the badges need to go. Luckily, we're only in the first stage of primer. We've still got sanding and a bit more body work to go and then another layer of primer before the top gate goes on. So now is the perfect time to mark out where my rear badges go. Two genuine badges from Toyota, our Toyota badge and our four-wheel drive badge. We'll mark out where these have got to go, mount them in position, test fit them, and we'll pull them back off, pack these back away until the colour goes back on. Two spectacularly shiny badges that hopefully will do my four-wheel drive some justice. So we've got one that goes here, and one that sort of just wraps around there. We'll measure them out, work out where the holes are going to go, fill them in now. Our four-wheel drive badge, just get a ruler. We want to come 75mm up from the bottom here. Mark out 75mm. We use this as our straight edge and our datum. We're just going to draw a line on our mark. So now we know the height. Now we need to find out where it fits. Righto, from this point here to this point here is 155mm. What works out really well for me is that my square is exactly 155mm from this point to this point, which makes it very easy for me just to do this. Otherwise, just get your ruler, measure it out, make sure it's square off the edge, and then you mark out your 150mm. That is exactly where our four-wheel drive badge will sit. On the back, we need to work out our hole position now. So I need to drill some 8mm holes. There'll be a rubber gasket that goes on the back of this. So the first thing we're going to do is work out the hole position so we know where to drill the holes in the correct spot. Easiest thing for me is we've worked from the bottom up here and we can work in from the edge. Taking my verniers is find the center mark, which actually has some little, I don't know if you can see them, some little cross hatches. There are our center marks. From the edge of the badge to the center of our mounting hole is 22.5mm. Now I can use these 2 points from the edge that I measured before, and I can make a little scratch mark. Now we do exactly the same with the bottom. From the center of the mounting hole to the bottom of the badge, take our measurement. We've got 27.5mm. Exactly the same thing again. Line it out. Put a little scratch mark on the paint. Now we have our position. Take our center pop. Now measuring between the two is exactly 70mm between the two mounting holes. That'll give us a quick rough starting point. Taking from our pin punch mark out 70mm. Our verniers are still set on the height from the bottom, so nothing changes there. We can again do us our scratch mark. And our final measurement from the edge to the center of the last mounting hole is 93mm. Back on the edge, scratch it in, pin punch our hole. Now we have our 2 holes marked out. Just to be double sure before we drill it, we'll just line the back of the badge up to make sure those holes line up. Make sure that we're happy with our position. I always like to drill a pilot hole first. So I'm just using a 2.5mm drill. Double check again. Now we can step up to our 8mm hole. Righto, our holes are drilled. Now for the moment of truth. Perfect. Next thing we need to do, we need to work out the position of our Toyota badge. Very similar process. We've already got our datum line. We can work off that line up to our Toyota badge. It's 165mm from the bottom, straight up. Again, we're working off the bottom of it, not the radius. Mark it out. There's the bottom. That looks cracker. Righto, following exactly the same process for highlighting these holes up. Take our verniers, 26mm from the bottom of the badge to the centre of this hole. Again, we're going to mark it off the line, put a little scratch in. From the end of our badge to the centre of this hole here, coming the other way, 27mm. Mark that hole with a pin punch. Our first hole was relatively easy to find. We've got it marked out and pin punched. The next 2 holes could be a little bit trickier. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to create a radius. Using this hole as my datum point, because we have our point, put my verniers in, mark out the top hole, and they'll be the same. So what we can do is we can scratch a radius line, and that'll give us our position. Righto, now that we've got our radius scratched in, next thing we're going to do is use our square, our centre mark from our first hole, and scratch in a line along our radius. That'll give us the centre of our radius. Measure the distance between the 2 holes, which is 36mm. So half of 36 is 18. Measure up 18 off that centre line and onto our radius. That 18 from the bottom onto the radius. Before we drill any holes, we can just test to see where these holes line up with our pin punch holes. Top and bottom. Make sure it looks square. I'm really happy with that position. And go ahead and drill some holes. So again, we're just going to use our 2.5mm pilot drill. Double check again before we drill up to our next size hole. Still super happy. So the hole we need to drill, 6mm hole. Now for the moment of truth. Now the back of these clips have like an expansion clip on it. So if we push that in all the way, it's going to be very difficult to get off. So we don't want to do that just yet. We just want to test fit to make sure that it's going to be okay. So just push it in and you'll know straight away whether you've got it right or not. That is perfect. I'm super happy with that. Righto, so I'm glad I remembered to test fit and drill all the holes before we painted it all. Otherwise, if you stuff up, it would have been on a new paint job. This is just my epoxy primer, which needs to be sanded back. Then we put our other primer on top, and we sand that back, then we put a top coat on. So if I was going to make any mistakes, I would have rather make them right now than much later. One last thing I'm just going to do, just quickly, is I'm just going to run the drill through all these holes again and just round them out just a very little bit of a fraction, because I just thought once the paint goes on it, I don't want to chip that paint back off again and cause a new rust spot. Working the drill through there just to give it a tiny bit of clearance for that paint, so when we push the badges on later, it's not going to chip the paint off and cause a rust spot. Then we have a countersink bit, ever so slightly just take that burr off it. If you don't have a countersink bit, you can just use the next size up drill, but just be really, really careful. You don't want to make the hole any bigger, or you don't want to make the burr any worse. Do the same to the inside, just take the burr off the inside. If I can get it. Righto, all the burrs are removed from the outside and the inside. The badges will fit up beautifully. So we've worked out where our positions are going to go, we've drilled the holes, we've test fitted them, now we can move on with the body work. Righto, so now we've got all the badges marked out and where the holes are, and they're all drilled, that's right. The next thing we need to work out is where our reflector lights go. Now this one I think is going to be a little bit easier. These are genuine Toyota reflector lights, brand new. So all we're going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of note of where the studs come through. I can see that they just come through and they're just pushing against the top and the bottom. I'll tell you why I'm going to do that. Pull it out. All I'm going to do is I'm going to put this here, I'm going to line it all up so it's square with the back of the tub. So straight away I can see that's not square. So we're going to square it up, keep moving it around until I'm looking straight down and it looks spot on square with the straight edge or your ruler. Righto, so that gives it a nice dead straight line to follow through with the rest of the cruiser. Now we're going to do from the bottom of the lip is we're going to measure up 20 mil from the bottom of the lip. That's going to be my location. All I'm going to do is take my pin punch, mark the 2 holes inside, check it with the back of the reflector. If it's all good, we'll drill it and that'll be its position. The other thing we want to check to make sure that it sits nice and flush following that radius around. If it sits nice and flush following that radius around, you know you've got it pretty much spot on. As we looked at before, the studs were pushing up above and below the rubber, so we know that's our starting point. Take the reflector, the studs, and we'll see how they sit. That's actually spot on perfect. So when we're checking our holes, as you can see, this is square, but our holes actually go in on like a 45-degree angle. So when we want to drill our holes, we want to drill in at this 45-degree angle. We don't want to drill this way, so in line with the tub. These are 5mm studs. What I'm actually going to do is drill 5.5mm, just give me a little bit of room to play with. All right, as always, 2.5mm pilot drill. 5.5mm. Make sure you drill right through that support bracket at the back. And test fit it for me, Andy. Oh, how good's that? Perfect. Oh, you want to put it all back together, Andy? Right, and test fit the whole thing. That's it, line the holes up. Perfect, hold it there.
Don't need to hold it.
Look at that.
Now go to the other side.
Do the other side now. Okay, line that whole spot up. Careful with your hand on the drill. Take your fingers off the drill, that's it.
Go.
Yep, keep it nice and square. That's it. Good girl. Good job. Well done. Do you want to test fit it to make sure it fits? Oh, perfect. Well done, Andy.
This one.
Yeah, put that on. Oh, lovely. Now, Andy, it's 11:45 during the middle of the day and you're still in your pajamas. Righto guys, that's it for another video. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. Give me a thumbs up. Feel free to leave a comment. And if you've got a build that you'd like to share, halfway through building, you finished building, or has an amazing history story behind it, hey, let me know and I'd love to share it on the next inspiration session. Take care of yourself, guys. Look after those around you. See you later. Thanks for watching. On today's inspirations, we're going to have a look at Kin Oaf's 1981 HJ47 mine bus conversion. This is truly a unique vehicle. I have never seen anything like this before. It caught my eye and I thought I want to share this conversion with you guys. Some years ago, one of Ken's mates told him about this HJ47 that had been converted from new to a bit of a mine bus to take executives on mine tours. Despite the fact Ken really loved this project with its big high headroom, side door and incredibly well designed windows, which Ken thought Toyota should have done from the factory, he initially passed up the deal. A few days later, Ken woke up and realised that this was a unique opportunity and he might never come across this opportunity again. So, he struck a deal, brought it home and sat it in the shed at home, continuing on with his other projects. It wasn't long before Ken was commissioned to finish the project off and make it what you see today. Ken tells me he was extremely lucky regarding the condition of the body, as the previous owner was an engineer and he'd already removed and fixed all the rust. He'd swaged another section of roof together to add aerodynamics at the front, which included overhead storage. He'd also gone to the trouble of adding underbelly boxes for extra storage. The chassis was stripped, cleaned and rust protected. Powered by the reliable 2H diesel motor, with added help from Bangalow smash repairs with panel and paint work. All the window pieces were a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. Ken laid each piece down on the ground until they worked out how they all fitted together correctly. Regarding all the small hardware on the 47, all the steel was cleaned by electrolysis and then primed and painted to original Toyota colours. The plastic bottles were cleaned with caustic soda. The visors came up an absolute treat just using dishwashing liquid and a green scourer. As for the chrome badges, Ken had devised a method of cleaning, polishing and painting to bring them back to a factory look. The underbody was sealed before mounting it to the chassis. The 47 was really starting to take shape and show its true form. By August 2019, the old mine bus had been completely restored and was now ready for engineering and blue slip. Both passing with flying colours, and the inspector complimenting the build many times over. with Ken putting in countless hours transforming this HJ47 to the ultimate touring vehicle you see today. Ken, your restoration on this vehicle, absolutely incredible. Your attention to detail is next to none. You've finished this project off with absolute precision and been able to show it in all its glory. Well done, Ken. Your craftsmanship and being able to bring this project to light is awesome. And I was absolutely stoked to be able to share it with all the viewers today. If you want to check out a little bit more on Ken's project, check out his Facebook page. A few more pictures and a little bit more information on there. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to sharing some more of your projects with you guys later. Thanks.